How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Set 6, and Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you all had a great time. I definitely feel like I've eaten far too much, and that's a good thing. But anyway, today we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, and more importantly, which summons we're going to see. Because we've seen a lot of summons over the course of Remake and Rebirth. We've seen summons that we know from the OG. We've seen new summons that have been added in. But we're going to talk about what's left and what new stuff we might also get. So, like the video, subscribe for future content, but let's jump straight into it. So, like I was saying, we've seen a lot of summons already, and we're going to go through the summons that we've already seen. So, in Final Fantasy VII Remake, the summons that we've seen so far are Carbuncle, Cactuar, Chocobo Chick, Ifrit, Choco Mog, Shiva, Fat Chocobo, Leviathan, Bahamut, and Ramuh. And that's a pretty good amount of summons that we got in Final Fantasy VII Remake, especially considering that, you know, in the Midgar section of the game, you don't get any summons in the OG. So it was pretty cool that we got some. Then we come around to Rebirth, and obviously this is including all of the special DLC summons that you can get in the pre-order summons and all that sort of business. But in Rebirth, we start off with Magic Pot, we have a Moogle Trio, we have a Posh Chocobo, we have Chocobo Mog again, we have Shiva, we have Ifrit, we have Leviathan, we have Ramuh, we have Titan, we have Phoenix, we have Alexander, we have Kajata, we have Bahamut Arisen, so a second Bahamut, we have Odin, and then we have Gilgamesh. So that is a pretty hefty amount of summons that we've got there across the two games. It's more than we have in the OG, and we'll go through the list of summons that we have in the OG in a second. But yeah, so far, a decent amount of summons, and in Rebirth we did end up with a lot of summons that were duplicated from Final Fantasy VII Remake. So we had Ifrit, we had Chocobo Mog, we have Shiva, we have Leviathan, we have Ramuh. So we've got a fairly decent number of them that came across from Remake, but we also had a lot of new ones added in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So as far as the OG goes, we've covered a lot of them. So we've had Choco Mog, we've had Shiva, Ifrit, Ramuh, Titan, Odin, Leviathan, Bahamut, Alexander, Kajata, Phoenix. I'm going to say we've had Neo Bahamut, because we've had a second version of Bahamut, we had Bahamut Arisen, so I feel like that kind of covers Neo Bahamut as well. But that's everything that we've had from the OG. Now, the summons that are left from the OG. We have Hades, we have Typhon, we have a third variant of Bahamut, Bahamut Zero in the OG, and then we obviously have Knights of the Round. And if we see similar behaviour in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 to what we saw in Rebirth, we'll probably end up losing the pre-order summons that we got in Rebirth, because in Rebirth we don't get the pre-order summons that we got from Remake, instead we get new pre-order summons. And I would assume that a similar thing happened in Remake Part 3. So the summons that were pre-order exclusive things in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we won't see them, but we'll probably see replacements for them. And that leaves me thinking, what new stuff are we going to see? Because pretty much all of the pre-order summons that we've got have been new, or brought over from other games. So for example, in Remake it was Carbuncle, Cactuar, and Chocobo Chick, which are summons that we've all seen. I'm pretty sure we've got a Chocobo Chick summon in one of the other games, but we've definitely got Cactuar and Carbuncle from Final Fantasy VIII, as well as other games in the franchise. And then when we come to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, they're gone, but they've been replaced with Magic Pot, Moogle Trio, and Posh Chocobo. So, for Part 3, I would expect that Magic Pot, Moogle Trio, and Posh Chocobo are gone, whereas the bulk of the other summon materials will still have. I'm going to guess that the only one of the other summons that we'll probably lose is going to be Bahamut Arisen, because in the same way that we lost Bahamut from Remake to Rebirth because it was replaced with Bahamut Arisen, I'm assuming that we'll see Bahamut Arisen get replaced by the equivalent of Bahamut Zero in Part 3. Also, I'm a little bit 50-50 on Gilgamesh and whether Gilgamesh is going to carry over, because Gilgamesh was obviously very centric to its own storyline and the Proto-Materia quest, and not everybody will have done that. So I think that there is a chance that we lose Gilgamesh as well. We may see Gilgamesh reintroduced, you know, maybe there's another quest that we end up having to do and then we can reacquire Gilgamesh, but I don't think Gilgamesh is going to be one that we can just get. Like, I think Odin will be one that we can just get. And same with the other summons that we had added in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But yeah, Arisen and Gilgamesh, I think we probably lose them, as well as the pre-order summons. So that still gives us a decent amount of summons. The pre-order summons will get replaced with new pre-order summons. I'm not too sure what we could see for that. One possibility, I suppose, could be something like Diablos. We see Diablos a few times in the franchise, so maybe Diablos pops up. We could maybe see a Tombury summon of some sort. We've not had one of them yet, so maybe we get something along the lines of that. We have seen a couple of Final Fantasy VIII summons pop up, so maybe we could see something from there, maybe like Pandemona. But then Pandemona treads on Typhon a little bit, and we're definitely going to get Typhon, I would assume. Doom Train would be another option, but that treads on Hades a little bit, so I think we would get Hades over Doom Train. So yeah, I'm not too sure what these pre-order DLC summons could be. I do think a Tombury summon is probably going to be a good shout, because we do see Tombury pop up a fair bit, and I don't think it treads on the toes of any other summons too much. It kind of fits in with what these pre-order summons have been so far. So yeah, I think Tombury would be a good shout. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments about this. What are the pre-order bonus summons going to be? Because I think it's probably going to fall in line, you know, with being things like monsters and stuff like that. So I think that's a good shout. There is the possibility that it ends up being something maybe like Diablos. Maybe something like Yojimbo. We've not seen Yojimbo pop up, so maybe something like that. There are options. There are definitely options out there for what the DLC summons could be. But the four that I think that we will definitely see added to the roster for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3 are going to be Hades, Typhon, and a new Bahamut variant. Something similar to Bahamut Zero. Now there is one more summon, obviously. There is Knights of the Round. I am uncertain about Knights of the Round. I don't know how they're going to do Knights of the Round. Like, believe me, I want Knights of the Round to be a part of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. It just needs to be there, in my opinion. And I assume that they're going to think the same thing. I don't think that they'll skip it. I hope that they don't skip it. But then the question becomes, how do they implement it? And could the difficulties in implementing something like Knights of the Round be a reason for them to skip it? Or maybe change what it is? So maybe Knights of the Round isn't a summon anymore. Maybe it's a group of knights that we have to fight. You know, we have to go through them one at a time, or like in groups or something like that. Because the way summons work in Final Fantasy VII Remake overall isn't the same as it worked in the OG. In the OG, you summon, it appears, it does a massive attack, or it does a massive status effect, or something like that, and then it goes away. Whereas in Remake and Rebirth, certain conditions have to be met, you have to wait for a gauge to fill up, and then you can use the summon, and then the summon sticks around for a little bit, you can give it some commands here and there, and then once the timer runs out, it does its big attack and disappears. So, very different, and for every other summon, it works. But for Knights of the Round, it could maybe be an issue. I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to have 13 knights running around on the battlefield? I doubt that. So we're only going to probably have one representative of the Knights of the Round in the active battle at all times. So we'll be able to send them commands and issue them commands, but it won't be as overpowered as Knights of the Round really should be, because Knights of the Round is overpowered, and that is the point of it, in my opinion. But then the big attack, does that end up bringing in the other 12 knights and we have 13 attacks for massive damage on an enemy? Or are they going to balance that out and change how Knights of the Round works? I think it's very possible that we are going to see some changes to Knights of the Round. Like I say, it wouldn't amaze me if Knights of the Round went from being a summon to being something that we have to overcome. I mean, it's possible that it is a summon, but the difficulty to overcome it is quite big. Like in Rebirth, Gilgamesh. You can't get Gilgamesh until you've gone through the whole Proto-Materia quest, which takes you right to the latter stages of the game, and then you unlock it. Could we see something like that with Knights of the Round, where throughout the game we have to encounter these different knights, maybe via Chadley, maybe out in the world, and as we defeat them, we eventually unlock Knights of the Round? Maybe. But how powerful is it going to be? How is it going to work? What are we going to see from it? Because, you know, it's Knights of the Round. It needs to be beefy. It needs to be super beefy. I would be completely fine with having 13 knights just running around on the battlefield. I think that'd be pretty funny. But that's super unbalanced, and probably would bring its own set of technical issues and difficulties to overcome. So I can't see it being something like that. I think most likely it will just be one representative of the knights in combat, and then we get the big finishing attack. But do we get all 13 hits? Is it going to be for huge damage, or is it going to be scaled back and brought more in line with the rest of the summons? I kind of hope that isn't the case, because Knights of the Round is supposed to be a special one. And then I suppose the only question after that is which summons do we end up getting added? And like I say, I think things like Diablos are probably going to be the best shout. Something like a Tombury summon. But what else? What do you think? What summons do you think we're going to see in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3? What new stuff are we going to get? And how is Knights of the Round going to work? Let me know what you're thinking in the comments below. Please do like the video and subscribe for future content. And keep having a great Christmas, because, you know, it's still Christmas-ish until after New Year. It's the festive period. So continue to have fun. Continue to have fun. But more importantly than all of that, have a great day.